Hello, welcome everyone to the talk on how to manage anxiety. And we have here Sarah Hodgkins, who's a qualified occupational therapist and is also a hypnotherapist and specializes in working in fertility, pregnancy, birth and trauma, and is also a mindfulness teacher. So that's a lovely combination of birth and trauma, pregnancy and mindfulness. And Sarah also created our Baby Mindful program. So the question I have for you, Sarah, is what is so important for new parents why is it so important for them to feel calm and confident?
I think there's so many reasons, and I think just having that kind of calm and sort of safe space, where parents can kind of grow and transition into that new role is so needed. It's so important, especially these days. Because parents they want the best for their babies, but I think they find it really difficult to think of their own needs alongside the baby's needs as well. They'll feel sometimes quite guilty about focusing on their own needs, even if they're absolutely shattered and, they've had a really bad night, but they've got something planned with the baby, they'll still go and do, whatever it is they've got planned. And I think generally as a society, we put very little value on what parents do and the importance of that role. So much you hear parents, particularly new parents, saying, oh, I've got nothing done. It was just one of those days and the baby cried and, fed all day. The house is a mess. I've got nothing done. Whereas actually, if you could look at that day from the baby's perspective, it would be their best day ever because, they've been held, they've been cuddled, they've been nurtured, they've been loved. And I think helping parents recognise the value of that and of what they do, that's a huge part in helping them to feel confident and to have that belief in themselves and the importance of it. I think very often sort of with babies, with all the chaos and everything that can bring and all the change, it can feel really quite sort of overwhelming, and it can be difficult to find that calm space where you can just stop, where you can just pause, where you can just take that moment and kind of just reflect on how you're feeling, how your baby's feeling, how you're interacting with each other, how you can respond to that. So I think that for me, that's so important to help parents learn how to find that calm space.
And when you were a parent, because now Meg, your daughter is she 13?
14.
She's 14,
yeah, 14.
Now. Wow. Yeah. So when she was a baby, did you put all these were you mindful, or were you one of the pressurized in work career mode parents and feeling that pressure and sense of guilt, or did you let everything go? What was your experience?
I think probably a combination of both. I think because I've always kind of practiced, sort of meditation and that sort of mindset, I think I probably had some of that aspect, but at the same time, it was all completely new. And, I'd never done it before. I'd never had a baby. I hadn't even been around babies, before I had my daughter. And I just so clearly remember feeling out of my depth, of feeling overwhelmed, of listening to everybody else, because obviously they knew better than I did. They'd done it before and they knew what to do and how to handle things. And yeah, finding that ability to just stop and just actually enjoy those moments. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to get to the next thing, to get through the night feeds, to get, through the nappy changes and all. And actually, I look back on some of that now and think that was the easy bit. Those moments where actually we just sat and cuddled and she was being fed or whatever. actually those were really lovely, lovely moments.
Mm,
And I think for me that's been a big part of what Baby Mindful is about, because it's helping parents just recognize actually just that value of doing that, of just pausing, of enjoying that moment, whatever it is that it brings. It doesn't
because there is a
necessarily
sense,
mean anything.
there is a real sense that we've always got to achieve something, we've always got to get somewhere. You know, like
Massively.
when the children get older and you've got to get out of the door and you've got to get hats and coats and everything, and there's just
Yeah.
such a stress around that, isn't there? Whereas
Yeah.
like, how can, you know, parents, also parents with older children in that sort of more stressful, when something has to be done, get
Hmm.
that sense of, you know, dropping into the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that
Yeah.
possible?
I think the earlier we can start those tools, the better. And I think it's certainly something that parents I've worked with in Baby Mindful, you know, and the coaches that train with us have said that actually, I wish I'd known this, you know, years and years ago, because actually these tools are things that if we set that foundation, then you're setting those patterns, you're setting those rhythms so that you can come back to those at a later stage.
Mm,
Um, and I think just giving yourself that permission to slow down, to not feel like you've got to get on to the next thing and the next thing.
mm,
That's a huge, huge part of it. And I think the earlier we can help parents feel that, the better. Because then as the next stages come, they'll have that trust in themselves. They'll have that ability to slow down and pause and notice and respond.
and can you talk a little bit, I'm really really interested in how our nervous systems talk to each other, and
Mm-hmm.
how, you know, it's something we don't really think about, isn't it? But we're always reading each other's nervous system, and, you know, being
Yeah,
attracted towards other, some repelled towards other, and it's like we're sort of getting on each other's wavelength or not.
yeah.
And how can that, how can parents use that to their best advantage in terms of getting on the same frequency as their baby or older child?
It's huge, and you know, a lot of what has gone into Babe Mindful is that sort of side of that neurodevelopment, and you know, that sort of understanding of babies' brains and that connection. And I think, you know, when we're in that kind of calm and sort of connected state, we're more able to think clearly. You know, we can take that step back, we can do that problem solving and the rationalizing, and then we can respond from that kind of calmer place rather than that kind of chaotic and sort of overwhelmed state, because we have these brilliant, in our brains we have what are called mirror neurons, and they exist kind of in the most primitive part of the brain, just purely for survival. And essentially what they do is they help us to read the emotional states of other people around us, and then it lights up motor pathways in our brain so that we can respond accordingly. So
Wow.
that's huge when you think of that
Yeah.
from the perspective of a baby. You know, if the parent is in that kind of tense and stressed state, that's going to be sending the message to the baby that something's wrong, that their survival is threatened. And then that will activate all of their kind of fear systems in their brain, and they will become more distressed and more tense, and the parent picks up on that and increases their tension, and you get into that cycle.
Mm,
And I think I often talk to parents as an OT and as, you know, as a baby mindful coach and relaxed kids coach as well, about this whole idea of what we call co-regulation. So co-regulation is about where we can use our sort of calm and connected nervous system to help the baby or the child do the same. So, you know, babies essentially, they're kind of, in terms of the brain function, they're kind of like cave babies. You know, they are working purely from that survival part of their brain, and they don't have the capacity to self-soothe in that sense. So when we talk about self-soothing, it's that idea of being able to sort of externally regulate their internal state. Do that, they need us to do it for them. So essentially, when we're in that calm and connected state, we are externally regulating their internal state for them. So if we can be in that calmer state before that interaction with the baby or the child or whatever it is, it's so, so important. We're bringing our calm state into their state. And we talk about this in the classes. And we use I've got my demo baby. This is baby Keith, who comes with me to all my baby mindful classes. And we talk about this with parents in the classes, just a really simple idea of the difference between, you know, when your baby's crying, if you pick them up in a tense state and in a relaxed state. So the way that I kind of explain it or sort of demonstrate it is that if, you know, your baby's sort of here and they're crying and they're really distressed and really upset, and we're tense and we're like, oh, please stop crying, please stop crying, please stop crying, we're kind of bringing them into that chaos with us. Whereas instead, if the baby's crying and they're upset and we kind of bring them in as we breathe out, we're bringing them into that calm, inviting them into our calm rather than into that chaos. And that, you know, it's such a simple tool, but it makes a huge difference. It sends that message to the baby's brain that it's okay, I've got you. You know, we're okay with things are all right. We can cope with this. It's safe.
I have a friend who's Japanese, and she said traditionally she heard that even the mother in those early days should just they would put the attention fully on the baby, not even look at a mobile phone, but just that baby, and just stay in that and let other people do the cooking and things. But I guess there is more of a tribal community.
It's not a tribal, culture,
tribe. The culture is other people. There are others. Granny can do the food maybe, and uncles, aunties. Whereas it's hard when you are a single parent, or when you know your partner is at work. So you know, why do parents, what is this pressure? Why do we feel so under pressure?
I think there are so many reasons. I mean, it's, you know, the kind of the information we get from everybody around us. You know, as soon as you have a baby, everybody's got an opinion, everybody's, you know, got an idea of what you should be doing, how you should be doing. And I think especially for new parents, or even like sort of, you know, second, third time, fourth time parents, if the baby's very different, you can feel very sort of you can lose your confidence very easily, because you kind of, and I can remember this, you know, that sense of, well, they must know what they're on about because they've done it before. And it's really hard to be able to take that information and to kind of take it on board, but then actually have that confidence and that ability to see it for what it is, to see it for, you know, that worked for them and their baby, that's not necessarily you and your baby. And I think that's where that kind of the practice of mindfulness is so helpful in that, because it allows you to kind of see that judgment, see that opinion for what it is, rather than what you think it is. And I think, you know, there's so often that parents, and I can remember this myself as well, you know, feel like you go against your instincts, you know, because, you know, perhaps like a mum that sort of picking up her baby because the baby's crying and is told, oh, you don't want to do that, you'll spoil them, you'll make a rug for your own back. And so that parent may not do that because she feels bad about it or she's worried about it, and then actually looks back and kind of regrets it and wishes that she had listened. Because parents, and I say this to parents all the time when I work with them, that you're the expert on your child. Your child, your situation, nobody else knows that better than you know it. And I think giving parents the confidence to feel that it's just huge. It's so important. We're bombarded with information, with charts, with books about what babies should be doing at any given point. And if that isn't how it is for you and your baby, that can feel really quite unsettling, because you then start that whole thing of, what am I doing wrong, or what's wrong with my baby? When actually a lot of these things aren't based on a lot of evidence. It's like the sleep charts, the how much babies should sleep at different times. They're not based really on any hard scientific evidence. They're essentially based on, a group of kind of researchers, scientists that sort of got together and like, how long do we think babies should be sleeping at this age? But parents all over the world stress about it, and my baby should be sleeping this much at this time. And then if they're not, they then get stressed about it, and because they're stressed about it, the baby picks up on that stress and is even less likely to go to sleep. And it's just that vicious circle.
So what sort of things could parents do to help bring them to that state of calm? Have you got some mindfulness tricks up your sleeve? Or, would it be, taking up knitting or what do you suggest?
I think there's so many things. I think for me, the practice of mindfulness, it links so beautifully, and there are so many benefits, I think, for parents to be gained from it. That sense of being able to kind of to let things unfold in their own time, to kind of just be in that present moment, rather than being caught up on, well, if I do this now, what's that going to mean 3 weeks down the line? If it works for you now, if it works for your baby now, then that's okay. That's what it's about. And I think it's about finding that way together. You and your baby, you're learning at the same time. You're learning about each other, and having that ability to just take the space to do that is so important. And we teach in the baby mindful classes, we teach in every session, we do breathing exercises, which obviously are kind of more beneficial for the parent as opposed to the baby. But the baby then benefits from that kind of calmer and sort of more settled parent. So one of the ones that we do is just essentially a breathing together, where the parents, they're encouraged to kind of hold the baby sort of in that natural notch where babies fit, and just have that closeness, because while they're here, we're doing so much of that work of regulating their nervous system for them. So our breathing rate will help to regulate the baby's breathing. Our heartbeat helps to regulate the baby's heartbeat. And our temperature actually changes as well. So temperature will go up or down by a degree to help regulate the baby's temperature. Wow. So, essentially we're regulating their brain and their body from that position. It's why babies love to be held. They're having to do so less of the work for themselves, because we're essentially doing a lot of it for them and with them. So with the breathing together, it's really just encouraging parents just to hold the baby close, to have that connection, and then to calm their breathing, because that then will really help the baby to settle into that calm breathing with them. And it's a really lovely sort of almost like a reset button, you know, or pause button when you've just had one of those days and everything's gone different to how you expected it to go. And it's just a really lovely thing to return to just slow down and just be. And so, you know, you can use this with children as they grow, you know,
Yeah,
as they get older.
If only our parents knew that, because our parents followed Dr. Spock,
Yeah,
and who said leave them. I literally still remember being left in a cot, just screaming
yeah,
and just needing to be held. It is one of my first memories. I remember I can
yeah. And
see the room. Yeah.
it, you know, when you think about it again from the baby's brain perspective, if the baby's, you know, sort of out of arms and crying, they're having to work so hard to do all of that basic stuff themselves, to regulate the heartbeat, the breathing, the temperature. They're having to do all of that and attend to whatever it is that's causing the distress.
Mm.
Whereas if we're doing that for them by holding them and we're helping them to regulate themselves, they're not having to work as hard. So they will
Mm.
calm more quickly.
Mm.
So I think, you know, giving parents those tools where they can calm themselves, where they can be aware of their emotional state and responding, is it's just so important, because it just helps them then to get
Mm.
into that space and sort
So
of be calmer for
how
them, the
can
baby.
so what are baby mindful classes, and how, who are they for, and how can they help uh, new parents? I guess I answered the
For well,
question.
for
Who are
yeah,
they for?
so for all parents really. So we start off with kind of the 0 to 6 months is kind of the first age group, if you like. And that's kind of really that foundation, where it's because babies are, you know, they're so, they can be so unsettled in that period and everything's so new for them. It's just such a huge transition from, you know, the womb to the world. It's just everything's different. If we can get that kind of that place of sort of calmness and stillness and help parents be able to develop those skills in those early months, that's really setting that foundation from that point. But then we also have, you know, progression for sort of 6 to 12-month-old babies, and then 12 to 18-month-old babies.
Mm.
Um, we have sessions we can work with parents, with mums during pregnancy as well. You know, so they're kind of developing those skills even before their
Amazing.
baby's born. You know, because while
Yeah.
they're
So
nice
babies,
and
so the
calm and
babies are actually there. So the
yes,
babies are there in the class as well. They're taking the
yeah.
class.
Yep. So it's for parents, and we, you know, we always say parents. We have dads, we have mums, we have grandparents that come. You know, aunties. It really is sort of for any parent or sort of carer. Um, there's a lot. I think a lot of coaches, and certainly this was in my mind when it was being developed. You know, working with perhaps parents that are struggling with postnatal depression, or just that sort of attachment, that sort of bonding side of it. That was sort of a really key part of it for me as well. You know, for again, even for sort of like young parents, or you know, perhaps in a babies that have sort of been born prematurely, or sort of special care baby units, something like that, where there really is that kind of anxiety and sort of, you know, fear in those early days.
Mm.
The more that we can help with that sense of calmness, the better, really.
Amazing. Amazing. So, and it is definitely something that you just like feel you want every, particularly new parent, to
Yeah,
come to, because often parents are so, they won't, because everything becomes about the baby,
yeah,
and so they won't take time out for themselves, so
yeah,
there isn't the time to do a yoga class or go to the things that they were doing before, because it's all about baby. But the wonderful thing about the baby mindful class is that it's still about the baby, but it's actually an amazing opportunity for mum, dad to relax as
Yeah,
well,
yeah. And
and feel.
especially with sort of, you know, with the when babies are really little, you know, they very often sleep through the class. And I've had so many parents that have sort of said, oh, you know, it's the best, you know, £5 whatever I've spent. Because actually, if I was at home and my baby was asleep, I'd be rushing around and putting the washing on and putting the hoover on. But actually, by coming to the class, I've got that permission to just stop and enjoy that time for me while my baby's sleeping. And you know, I can remember a lovely mum that I worked with quite early on in the sessions, and you know, her little one was really unsettled. He'd cry in the car seat, absolutely hated going in the car seat. Every time he would just scream, and she would dread it, and she'd be in that state of kind of tension, you know, worrying about what it was going to be like. And she came to the class, and he was quite unsettled at the start, and he took a while, you know, to relax. But he gradually did, and she did as well. And they had a lovely session, and he went to sleep by the end of it. And they went home, and she texted me as soon as she got home, and she said, he hasn't cried in the car. She said, he slept the whole time. It's the first time he's ever done, you know, he's, I think, about 3, 4 months old at that point. He's never done that. He's screamed the place down. He slept the whole way through. He slept when I got him out the car, and then he carried on sleeping. And I kind of just sort of went, why do you think that is? And she's like, oh, it's because I'm more relaxed, isn't it? Because there wasn't, you know,
Absolutely.
there wasn't that tension and that dread and that fear. Because she was relaxed, it allowed him to be relaxed. And it just so simple, but it made that huge change for them.
Amazing. And then if they can carry that on until when the children grow, if the parent is
Yeah,
continuing to work on their own nervous system, their own relaxation, that child is going to hopefully be calmer and be
yeah,
able to eventually self-regulate
yeah.
themselves.
Because you know, we as we grow, our development, we model from the people around us, don't we? You know, so if the what we're
Absolutely.
seeing around us, if what we're learning is that kind of calmness or that ability to just stop and pause and then do, that's huge. You know, we're those first 5 years of life, we're building babies and children's brains. You know, so if we can get with Baby Mindful, with the Little Stars, with Relaxed Kids classes, if we can get that different state in, that's huge. That's foundational
Yeah.
stuff.
And I love the fact that it doesn't matter if the baby falls asleep. In fact, that's the what you want. And then you've got
Yeah,
a calm parent. But you know, very often if we have baby singing classes or the more sensory things where there's lots of stuff going on, if your baby fell asleep during that, you'd think, oh, that's, you
they're
know, I'm
missing
paying the
it.
money for you to sing
Yeah,
together and bounce around. But we want, you know, that's what we want them to
yeah,
just let go and relax their little bodies and their minds. And
yeah,
yeah, so it's
completely.
really
And
valuable. And I
I
think
think
something
so.
that we.
I was going to say, so many of the activities that we do, they deliberately have different ways to do them for, you know, say if the baby's asleep. So like the feel section, we do the massage. If baby's asleep, then parents are encouraged to do it for themselves. You know, so they get the benefit of it too,
Yeah,
but they're also learning it, and then they can always do it with their baby afterwards.
absolutely. Yes. Super. Oh, thank you so much, Sarah, for having that talk. That was so good. Lots and lots of tips there. And I hope parents of all ages can take that on board and take some time out to, whether it's practicing mindfulness, being aware of their own nervous systems, and then help their child regulate their nervous system, or
Yeah,
they do for the baby, and then as the children get older they can learn to self-regulate. So
yeah,
that's been really
definitely.
useful. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Pleasure. Thank
Thank
you.
you.